Is there an American filmmaker who has captured the collective subconsciousness of our film culture today like Paul Thomas Anderson has? It's abundantly clear in every single project that PTA has released to the eager moviegoing crowd since the early days of his career. With movies like Boogie Nights, Punch Drunk Love, There Will Be Blood, Phantom Thread, and many others making a critical slam dunk with the moviegoing and critical wavelengths, it just goes to show how dedicated and passionate of an artist Anderson is within each of his works. A PTA film isn't just a movie, it's an entire experience altogether, and this is abundantly clear from the first frame to the last. His films are chock full of so much narrative depth, instilling a complex angle onto his characterization and the thematic material of the stories that makes each moment feel vulnerable, enthralling, and most important of all, real. With as far-fetched as some of his concepts and moments can be, it would be easy for any other filmmaker to let go of the balloons, for lack of a better word, and to not be able to control the wild and zany atmosphere and tone of these movies. But PTA is a trained expert in knowing when to take a firm hold on the reins, and when to loosen his grip on them as well, which makes his movies feel much more well-rounded as a result. Every time Anderson releases a movie, it feels like an event, and it therefore sends a ripple out into the cinematic crowd as well. His movies are all anyone can talk about at the moment, much to the dislike of some of the staunch anti-PTA moviegoers who have not bought into the hype of his work themselves. And this exact same ripple has once again been sent out in the moviegoing and theatrical world with the arrival of his newest film at the box office yet again this weekend, which is One Battle After Another, which stars Leonardo DiCaprio and is PTA's 10th film overall in his career. Now, based on the marketing leading up to the specific film's release, it's fair to say that most audiences, myself included, were not exactly sure what we were going to experience within the runtime of PTA's latest motion picture. I mean, we got a bare semblance of a plot, which followed Leonardo DiCaprio as what appeared to be an ex-revolutionary, with some whippy editing and fast-paced music showcasing what seemed to be a violent, turbulent, and wild ride from start to finish. Yet, we as audiences never got a sense of the thematic structure or the story of such a film, which both intrigued and scared me for a multitude of reasons. Chief among them, because this would be a film that I walked into with no prior conceptions or knowledge of what I was about to experience, which has only happened a few distinct times throughout my career as a film critic, most notably recently with 2023's Boy and the Heron. Yet, for all the anticipation that built up for me in this regard, I also approached this film with an air of cautious optimism, hoping that this would be a slam dunk for PTA, yet not having a knowledge or certainty of knowing for sure what angle he would try to go for with this film. So, to the fanfare of rave social media reactions in the week leading up to this film's release, and with anticipation building by the minute, I booked a ticket to the first showtime I could this afternoon at my local IMAX theater, settled into the plush stadium seat rocker, and truly prepared myself to experience whatever I was about to inside of this film in its runtime. And I rarely say this when I walk out of a movie for the first time, and if you know me, you'll know that I usually don't bring myself down to such overt and sudden reactions like this in my reviews, but holy shit, what a motion picture this movie is. I'm starting off this review before I get into my thorough analysis of this masterpiece by simply telling you to stop watching this right now, go to fandango.com, book a ticket to the next showtime you can possibly make of this film, and then come back and watch this review. I am being absolutely dead serious when I say that. There are times in my tenure as a film critic where I find it necessary to implore audiences to go seek out a film as soon as humanly possible, and this is easily one of those times. This is not only to support the film in theaters, as it seems unfortunate that a lot of the conversation around this movie has been centered around its poor box office reception thus far, which we'll shortly get into, but also because this is a movie that holds a plethora of surprises up its sleeve that are sure to be trending throughout this weekend and beyond on social media. And the best experience for this movie is to go in completely blind to anything that occurs within its wild runtime. With that said, I'll include a link to the Fandango page for the film below down in the description to book tickets, and I truly mean it. Go see this movie in theaters, you will not regret it. You know, the other day, I found myself questioning a topic that I had considered at other times within the last few years alone, but never with as much urgency or prevalence as this time. As I was scrolling mindlessly through my YouTube TV guide to record an upcoming program on television, I stumbled upon a channel that was playing old-fashioned Western films, particularly from the black and white era. I turned on the channel on a whim, and I found myself once again thoroughly invested into the world that was portrayed in this film with such unflinching earnestness and honesty. Westerns, if you didn't know, are my favorite genre of film out there. It's the genre that got me hooked on the art of filmmaking from an early age, and I've spent many a time watching an old John Ford or Sergio Leone movie whenever the want arises. There's something so magical and unique about this genre in particular, in which a sprawling and epic landscape sets the scene for intimate character drama and over-the-top action with classic gunslinger fights, saloon brawls, and incredible cinematic antagonists that have solidified their place inside of movie history. Westerns used to be the genre back in the day in the film industry, akin to the phenomena that now surrounds like superhero movies at the modern-day box office for comparison. Yet within the 21st century alone, you rarely see a new Western film entry within the genre released within the box office landscape. And beyond just this, you no longer see audiences yearning or asking for such a film to be released. This ultimately has led me to consider and ponder the question many times before: what ultimately happened to Western films? Why did such a popular genre and subject in its heyday ultimately fade into obscurity with ease, vanishing out of thin air as soon as it had picked up? Ultimately, such an exploration deserves its own video essay or dissertation dedicated to breaking down the intricacies of such a topic, but it's something that I find myself considering every so often as I witness a piece of media from that genre that reminds me of and reinvigorates my love for it. Now, Westerns are sometimes released within the century, but it can be difficult for filmmakers to pull this off, as the time period and era of these films seems discordant and jarring with our modern sensibilities as a culture, which could account for the lack of connection with most audiences with the genre. However, as I watched one battle after another today, and I walked out of the theater in a stunned silence at what I had just witnessed over the course of almost 3 hours, I realized in that moment that Paul Thomas Anderson has perhaps crafted, either on purpose or quite by accident, the quintessential 21st century Western film. Now you might be wondering to yourself after I said that, Mitchell, how is this the case when the film doesn't involve the trademarks of that genre such as cowboys, gunslingers, and bank shootout fights? And the answer to that question is, you're right, it doesn't. But that is the point. The tropes and diversions of the Western genre are present and prevalent throughout a lot of one battle after another's runtime. But what PTA has accomplished is telling a story laden with these moments, while also simultaneously translating the genre into a 21st century space and mindset that practically reinvents the Western for modern sensibilities. In one battle after another, viewers follow Bob Ferguson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, a former revolutionary and member of a group known as the French 75, who lives with his daughter Willa, played by Chase Infinity. However, after Bob is alerted of the danger that both himself and Willa are in, and after dangerous forces take Willa to an unknown location, Bob begins to realize that the past has come back to face and haunt him for his mistakes in the form of Colonel Stephen Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn. Armed with his wit and resolve, Bob must journey to find and bring back Willa to safety, while also evading the detection and hunt of Colonel Lockjaw in the process. Trust me, there is a lot more to this film than what I provided in the plot synopsis, but as I don't want to ruin any of the surprises here for you, you'll just have to roll with that until you see the film for yourself. Now, on its surface, one battle after another might not appear to have anything in common with the Western genre. Set in a current time and place that is starkly juxtaposed with pollution, violence, and vandalism, the setting and atmosphere of this film seems quite at odds with what is traditionally associated with the Western genre, in the form of small, quiet towns in the American Southwest simmering with tension underneath, sweeping vistas, and gorgeous mountains. However, upon closer examination here, it appears that these two worlds actually aren't that much different from each other after all. And this is how the film begins to bring the Western tropes to a 21st century tinted lens in such a profound and nuanced way. The classic outlaws and vigilantes riding through the vast landscapes on horseback have been replaced with revolutionaries riding around in beat-up cars, traversing the same Californian desert landscape that many of the classic Western protagonists of old have, albeit with now more windy concrete roads than were featured in these films in their heyday. There are gunfights, chase sequences, and over-the-top action moments that feel plucked from another genre entirely and placed inside of the confines of a modern-day setting in a way that broaches a serious yet simultaneously lyrical spin on the material. Leonardo DiCaprio's Bob Ferguson feels himself like a character in a similar vein as Clint Eastwood's classic Man with No Name, a character who is himself a shadowy, mysterious, and often rash protagonist, who chases after the thing he longs for the most while facing down with the main antagonistic force that seeks to stop him every step of the way. And in this way, Sean Penn's antagonist Colonel Lockjaw feels like the 21st century equivalent of Lee Van Cleef's classic villain Angel Eyes, treating the scope and seriousness of this film's plot with a steely resolve and cold demeanor that underlies ulterior motives underneath the surface. And in a way, even Eli Wallach's classic relief in the form of characters such as Tuco and the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly feels present in Benicio del Toro's over-the-top character Sensei Sergio, a character who provides a much required and needed respite whenever the film's stakes or tension get too prevalent or realistic for audiences to handle. There are so many visual and symbolic elements that showcase the Western style adaptation through a modern lens. Yet ultimately, the true showcase of this particular topic occurs within the thematic content of the film itself. At its core, this is a film steeped in the very idea of immorality, much like many Westerns were in their heyday as well. As we follow Bob Ferguson throughout the film, we are treated to a protagonist who doesn't exactly fit the bill as many protagonists we have followed throughout films in the past. This is because Bob is not a good character in a sense of the word. Rather, he has a checkered past and he isn't perfect. He has to deal with the regret of his actions every day, and has to strive to make the world a better place not just for himself, but for his beloved daughter as well. However, after her abduction, Bob realizes that the very core of his existence, hope, and above all, future, lies within his daughter. And as he strives to get his child back by any means necessary, we witness a shift occur in which his priorities are in line and we begin to understand his situation and empathize with his longing. This parallels the characterization trajectory in many classic Western films of old, in which the smooth-talking and action-partaking gunslingers are not exactly the moral protagonists we would want to follow. Rather, they are dangerous, cutthroat, and often violent. They partake in acts that skirt the moral line more often than not. Yet at the same time, their heroic escapades and adventures often help them redeem themselves in the end through such an individualistic and nuanced lens. And in this this way, One Battle After Another champions yet again another aspect of the Western genre through a modern retelling and viewpoint that just feels fresh, authentic, and above all, original. Aside from this angle, however, One Battle After Another is a film that knows entirely what it wants to do, and it sets out to achieve this goal in such a roundabout and remarkable way. This is as sure-footed and steady of a film as any that Paul Thomas Anderson has made throughout his career thus far, and it shows. From start to finish, this movie is sleek, stylish, and original, conveying such a prevalent and visceral story through such a personal and profound viewpoint, unlike anything I can confidently say I've seen within cinema before. It is unreal. Leonardo DiCaprio delivers one of his best performances of his storied career here as Bob Ferguson, instilling the character with a realistic and vulnerable edge, and makes him stand apart from the rest of the cast as a result. His monologues, dramatic moments, and comedic relief lines all help convey a set tone and atmosphere to the material, balancing out the stakes and tension and contributing to such a well-rounded end result overall. If we're talking about stars here, however, then we have to talk about Chase Infinity's performance as Willa Ferguson, who more than commands the film in every single scene, and I do mean it. Her vulnerability is juxtaposed with a fierce will and determination that lights up the screen in so many scenes and moments throughout the film. And her dynamic with DiCaprio and Penn especially feels so well established as well, due in part to her phenomenal skills as a performer and actor. Trust me when I say this, I will be there for any project that Chase Infinity pursues after this, and I see major things arriving for her in the future as well down the line, and I cannot wait to follow it. Sean Penn delivers perhaps one of the most chilling and intense antagonistic performances inside of a major motion picture in some time, in the form of Colonel Stephen Lockjaw. A terrifying and haunting rendition of themes and ideas such as inner vulnerability, lack of self-worth, and struggles with racism, as any character has ever been portrayed with. There are so many small nuances and character beats within Penn's performance that convey and reveal so much towards this character, which is absolutely impeccable. As mentioned, Benicio del Toro does great work as Sergio, a teacher and trainer of Willa's in martial arts who starts to become embroiled inside of Bob's plot against his own will, and Regina Hall and Tiana Taylor both do great work as Deandra and Perfidia, members of the French 75 who are also integral to the film's dramatic stakes and tension. Yet beyond just these superficial acting qualities that make the film so worthwhile and rousing, it is truly the material here that sets One Battle After Another far ahead of most of the competition this year alone. This is a tight screenplay with even tighter direction, operating on a completely different level and never slowing down in a single second of its runtime. At a runtime of 2 hours and 45 minutes, this is a movie that flies by completely, never letting up on the gas to give audiences a chance to retain their bearings. The direction feels so steady, nuanced, and above all, purposeful, with Anderson's vision shifting to clear and unflinching focus many different times throughout the film with ease. And above all, as you might have guessed, this is just a wild ride from start to finish. This is a madcap adrenaline rush of the highest order, with pulse-pounding moments of intensity that feel incredibly visceral and impactful for audiences. There are several sequences in this movie that made me catch my breath at moments, especially within that electrifying third act of the film. And this is precisely why I say that One Battle After Another is a film that deserves to be seen on the big screen. With Michael Bauman's gorgeous cinematography and Johnny Greenwood's ethereal and pounding music score, it's an experience unlike any you will find inside of a movie theater this year alone. That said, One Battle After Another, for no matter how incredible the end result is, falters somewhat in a few regards. Most notably, the ending doesn't feel as fleshed out or nuanced as the entire film preceding it, which results in an ending where the film abruptly just kind of ends, leaving audiences to kind of scramble together the pieces in order to reach a definitive conclusion. Yet with this and even minor script problems in mind, the movie overall more than makes up for it in practically every single other regard imaginable. It's rare to find a film that genuinely reestablishes your unbounded love and appreciation for the cinematic art form within this modern box office landscape, but One Battle After Another is exactly that type of film. I walked out of the theater almost on a high, shell-shocked and genuinely shaken by what I had just witnessed for all the right reasons. It seems that the somewhat limited marketing for One Battle After Another has been a double-edged sword thus far, as on the one hand, it is keeping a ton of surprises hidden for audiences to discover for themselves as they embark on the film, yet on the other hand, this poor reception and lack of marketing has led to the film appearing to open moderately at this weekend's box office, which is honestly deeply unfortunate and just such a shame. A film this audacious, fresh, and overall masterful deserves to be supported as such. And if you care about the art form of cinema whatsoever and original film properties within this crowded box office landscape in particular, you owe it to yourself to see this film as soon as you can. I'm not a betting man, but if I had to wager a bet, I would say we might be seeing this film taking home the Best Picture award next spring. That's why I'm giving One Battle After Another a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this review on my channel. If you're new around here and you like the content you see, don't forget to click that subscribe button down below, like the video, and turn on push notifications. Also, leave comment suggestions down below for future video, essay, and review topics. With that being said, until next time, this is Mitchell signing off. Peace out.